Hi, welcome. It's Beth Steinke with Century 21 Judge Fight Company, and I am very, very excited today to bring you my friend Kaitlin Philley, who is a will, trust, and estate planning attorney. Well, that doesn't sound super exciting, but let me just tell you what. She really brings this home to all of us and is going to help us today understand why that is such an important piece of all of our lives and for our own peace of mind. So she's going to bring this into every person's life today, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. She is fantastic. Kaitlin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited. I am so excited to bring you to the world here because you are one of my dear friends, and not only that, you've helped me with our will and estate planning, and so that is just means a lot to me. And I'll share some of our story about why and how we've done ours and why it was so important for us to have that done. But first, I want to hear a little bit about you. So I know that you live here in Mansfield and
I do.
lived here a long time, right?
Long time. I graduated high school here in 2004. It was just the second year that the Broad Street campus was open. So that's how far back I go. Actually, when I was a freshman, we were going to what is now Wester, and it was like the freshman center. So that's how old I am. But yeah, so we've been here a long time Mansfield residents. My mom lives up the street.
That's awesome.
Went off to school and came back.
And tell us a little bit about school. Where did you go?
Well, graduated from Mansfield High in 2004, and then I went to undergrad locally at UTA, stayed home and paid my way through, and then I went to law school at the University of Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner.
I love that. Fantastic.
My husband will appreciate that. Boomer Sooner.
I love that. Fantastic. Well, so you are dedicated, community-minded, important member of the Chamber of Commerce here. You guys are, longtime residents, and I know that the Mansfield community is super important to you, and you are to them. And so tell us a little bit about what you do business-wise for our Mansfield community.
Are we talking just about helping people protect and plan for the future? Okay, so that is my main goal, is helping people plan for the future, protect their legacies. Most people don't understand what all is involved in estate planning. They assume that it is something that is just for rich people, or you only do it if you have multi-million-dollar estates, and that's just not the case. Estate planning is for everybody. It just helps you say what you want to happen in the event that something happens to you. It's just like having car insurance or home insurance or anything else. You're setting up a plan. If I can't make decisions for myself, this is who I want to do it. If something happens to me and I pass away, this is how I want all my stuff to be distributed. So it's just kind of your way of making your wishes known, and that's what I do.
I love that.
In a nutshell.
I love that. And, I told you at the beginning I was going to bring in some of our personal stories into in and around this conversation, because my mom, who was one of the most squared away human beings on the planet, I mean, nothing got by her. She kept every bill she ever received for utilities and wrote paid, check number, and filed it. Okay. But when she passed, it wasn't all that unexpected. The woman literally put the poem she wanted read at her funeral on her desk with a note that says, "Read this at my funeral," but died without a will. Well, she died without a valid will. So she had written up her wishes, but never executed it or got it notarized and made it official. And so we were all just so blown away, and it ended up costing her so much more money. Well, the estate, so much more money, because she did die without a will in place. And so after that happened, Roger and I made a point that we were not going to let that happen to our kids. We weren't going to let the state take more money than it needed to, or what have you. So, because I know that had she realized that, she would not have been very happy, because she was so squared away financially and on top of everything else except this one thing. And so because Roger and I travel out of the country multiple times a year, and, there's a little bit of inherent risk around that. And sometimes people get illnesses. And of course, 2 years ago, he did. And so I was so, one of the greatest comforts that I had while he was fighting to live from that out of the country trip was I knew that you and I had done this estate planning, you know, just like 3, 4, 5 months before this. And so that was one less thing I had to worry about. I had that protection in place. We knew what was going to happen, and we knew and understood each other's wishes. And so it was one small comfort during a very big time of stress. I'm sure you have a million stories like that in your practice.
Yes, all the time. I prepared estate planning documents for someone. Within a year, his wife started having all kinds of issues, and he literally texted me one evening and said, "Can you email me a copy of the medical power of attorney?" And so I just hopped on my computer and sent that over so the doctors could see, and it was much more streamlined. So yes, and so many times people come in and they sign their documents, and they will tell me that as soon as we're done signing, and I tell them, okay, you're done, you know, now I'm just going to go scan in your document so we have a signed copy in case like that situation occurs. And they'll tell me, I just feel like such a weight is lifted off of my shoulders. So yes, we hear that a lot actually, and I'm glad you felt that way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So, you know, it's not something that people want to talk about, right? Nobody wants to talk about what happens if. Right? We only want to say, I want to focus on the positive. But the reality is being unprotected is just such a greater challenge for your family, for you, and really and truly, it's your family. You know, I've heard it put this way.
For sure.
Don't you love your kids? You know, don't you think you should probably do some of this so they don't have to? And a really quick anecdote in terms of medical power of attorney. I am not my husband's medical power of attorney. He does not think that I have what it's going to take to make that decision. So his brother, a former Marine, is his medical power of attorney. And, you know, so he's making that decision in advance because he knows me.
Right, exactly. You pick the best person to do the job. Some people are in a crisis or very level-headed, and that just suits their personality so well that they would be able to do that. Some people are more emotional, and it would be so much harder for them to make some of those tough decisions. And so if that would be a burden to them, then you may not want to push that decision-making authority on them. So absolutely. By the way, I think you would be a great decision maker, but I'm sure.
Oh, thank you. I do appreciate that. I do too. I can be pretty bossy when needed. But okay, so what types of services are involved in estate planning? So we know wills, and then we hear about trusts. We talk about estate planning and just different things. So just break that down a little bit for the average person. You mentioned that you don't have to be a millionaire to need this stuff. So just break that down a little bit for us.
No. So we have what are called incapacity planning. So we have incapacity documents, and then we have those that go into effect after you pass away. Incapacity documents are those that are in place while you are alive, but you cannot make decisions for yourself. So it could be something as benign as that you're out of the country and you know that you need somebody to sign off on the sale of your home because it's potentially going to sell while you're out of the country. So you give them the power of attorney to be able to sign off and do those things. Or it could be something all the way down the gamut to you're in a coma and you need someone to be able to make medical decisions for you and to keep your financial life going in the meantime. So we prepare documents. They're called powers of attorney. There's one for medical decisions. There's one for financial decisions. And you just appoint someone to make those decisions for you in the event that you can't.
Now, what about
sorry.
No,
go ahead.
Well, what about a trust? So I hear conflicting information when it comes to trust. And I know that this sometimes varies state to state, or I think it does anyway. But tell me a little bit about who needs a trust and why a trust would be important for some people and maybe not others, if you can. Like, I know that's a complicated question.
Sure. Everything in estate planning is situation specific. There are certain documents that most people need, but how we draft those documents and the particulars that go into them are always going to be specific to your situation. That's why when you hear, oh, well, so-and-so did this and it worked for them, that may be true, but your circumstances may be a little bit different. So we may need to do something else for you. But a trust is a great probate avoidance tool. So in some states like California, where probate is little bit more rigid, takes more time, is more expensive, and that can be a big deal. It helps you avoid probate. It can be used in situations where you own property in multiple states. Real property is governed by the laws of that particular state. So Texas controls Texas property, Oklahoma controls Oklahoma property. So if you have a Texas house but an Oklahoma cabin, you may want to have a trust that you put those properties in, so you don't have to probate in both states in order to pass title. If you are over the current federal estate exemption amounts of $11.58 million, close to $12 million, then you may have to do some sophisticated estate tax planning that could involve business entities and trusts. Some people just want a trust because they hear that it's going to be easier, and that's okay. If you just want one, I'll give you one. But I will tell you that probate in Texas is not probate in other states. Probate in Texas is very Texas in general is very property ownership friendly. For the most part, they're creditor unfriendly, just meaning that creditors have to go through a very strict process that's laid out for them in order to get their claims paid. And so a lot of times we're able to prioritize claims in probate. Not everything gets paid. Stuff still gets passed down like it's supposed to. It just kind of depends on that situation. But if probate avoidant, if you're scared of probate, first of all, come talk to me, because it's not that big a deal. Really, in Texas, it's pretty easy, but those are just some of the reasons you could want to trust. Or if you want a little bit more control over assets, I literally have seen a trust. I worked on a trust once where there was a schedule for a family painting to go to certain people for a certain amount of years, and then it went from one child for like 5 years, and then the next child for 5 years, because they weren't sure how else to deal with it. So you can do that. You can be a little bit more specific than you can in a will.
Wow.
A little bit more controlling.
That was very informative. I feel like you gave a lot of information there, so people might have to watch this more than once, because I think that you really did an incredible job of simplifying that. And, you know, truthfully, one of the reasons why I send my referrals for this service to you is because you do such a good job of simplifying it and bringing it down to the layperson's understanding, and so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and their family. So thank you for that always.
Well, thank you.
And so tell me what you love about this job, because certainly, you know, this has been your primary field of practice in law. What do you love about it, and why did it attract you to it?
So the first thing that attracted me to it was that my family is patient zero for most of the problems that I deal with. I caution people, have a will. You really do your family a service when you have all your documents in place, you have all that laid out. So it's very clear what you want, and it can reduce fighting and all that stuff between, and all the stuff that happens when people die, or when people are incapacitated and emotions are just running high amongst family members. My family, my grandmother did not have any of that stuff in place. And so, I mean, she died a couple years ago, 3 years ago, and to this day, my mom and her sister still aren't talking, and it's really over nothing. I mean, really, if you really look at it, it's really over nothing. So that is what first interested me in there, because about the time that I went to law school, about the time she started having problems. And a lot of the concerns that I heard from her about not wanting to set up these documents, she didn't want to lose her autonomy, she didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, are the same things that I hear when people come into my office now. So I'm able to tell them, listen, been there, done that. Let me tell you a possible scenario of what will happen later if you don't do this planning. And it's not to scare people, it's just to warn them. This stuff happens all the time. You could ask any estate planning or probate attorney about family dynamics and not having these things in place, and they will have lots of stories to tell you. So really, it's because my family was patient zero is why we started doing this, or why I started going into that area. And that kind of leans into why I continue to do it, or why I went that direction, is that I get to be in an area of the law where I'm helping people, and it's not at the expense of anybody else a lot. I know litigators get a bad rap all the time because, you know, they're always out for their client, or they're sharks, and they're just out to get somebody else. And they're really just advocating for their client. And in my scenario, there really is no other side. So you don't really have to worry about with estate planning. I'm purely focused on helping my client achieve their goals. So that's what I really like about it. And they're always happy when we're finished.
Yeah, because
So.
you don't have to do this, you know, maybe you do an annual review or if you need to, but truthfully, most of the time you can fix this and forget it until a major life change, I would imagine, but certainly we would follow your direction around that. I
Yeah.
loved everything you just said, because the truth is, I bet you almost everybody listening knows some family that has had that same outcome that you're talking about. I know I do.
I'm sure.
And it is, and it's so sad. And I know that the deceased person would never have wanted that as an outcome. So that's what the comment I made earlier, that don't you love your kids? Just do these things for them, right? And really any age, right?
Oh yes. I've had people wait until come in their 80s and say, well, we figured now is about time. When in reality, they had children and property and things before, and so earlier would have been time. I had a young couple come in and sign their documents just a few weeks ago, and they have a 2-year-old, and so they're in their early to mid-30s. That's a great time to do it. Anytime that you have something that you want to protect and plan for, and really, you know, children are a great impetus to get that done, but owning property, anything like that. Anytime you have a will, it is easier to get through the probate process than when you don't. I've yet to run into a scenario where it would have been more beneficial not to.
Well, listen, this has been incredible. You're a wonderful ambassador for people to do some estate planning and will probate planning. So thank you for sharing your time with us today. I know you're very, very busy, but I've got up on the screen where people can reach out to you and learn more and just make an appointment, because the truth is that now is the time. In fact, yesterday was the right time, but we'll take care of you this coming week, right? So
right, absolutely.
Well, wonderful. Thanks so much, Kaitlin, for breaking this down for us and just helping us through the confusion around the why and the what and the how. Because truth is, the why is because everybody has something to protect, and the how is just call you and let you guide them through and understand their situation. So thank you. And thanks for being our great representative for our family and helping us with all of this too.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And I'm really glad I could be there for you when you needed it.
Absolutely. Take care. And everybody else, thank you so much for joining us for this Mansfield Business Spotlight. You guys, we've got some amazing people in this town that do amazing work for our community. So I hope that you'll keep tuning in and share these with your friends and family, because like this topic is just so critical to everyone, really. So I hope that you've enjoyed today, and we'll see you next time.